ጤና ይስጥልን ውድ የኢትዮጲያ ቤተሰቦች እንደምን ሰነበታችሁ? ሁሌም ሰላምና ጤናን እየተመኘው ዛሬ አጭር መልእክት አለችኝ እንደምትከተለው አቀርባታለሁ። ባለፉት 2 ሳምንታት እንደሚታወቀው በበርካታ የኢትዮጵያዊነትን በሚያነብንቡ የኢትዮጵያ ዩቲዩብ ቻናሎች ላይ ዘመቻ ተከፍቷል። which is የኔታ ዜና ቲዩብ እና ዘሀበሻ የተሰኙት የምርጥ የኢትዮጵያ ልጆች ቻናሎች እንደተዘጉ ልታውቁ ትችላላችሁ፣ ወይም ካላወቃችሁ መዘጋታቸውን በዚህ አጋጣሚ እንድታውቁ እንፈልጋለን። ስለዚህ እሱን ደግሞ ለመታደግ የኔታ ቲዩብ የራሳቸውን ጎፈንድሚ ጀምረዋል። ማለትም ከዚህ በኋላ ዩቲዩብ ላይ ሳይሆን የራሳችንን የሬዲዮ ጣቢያ ከፍተን አገራችንን መቀየር የምንችልበትን እንቅስቃሴ እንድንጀምር ሁላችሁም ዜጎች የበኩላችሁን አስተዋጽኦ እንድታበረክቱ በሚል መልእክት አስተላልፈዋል። ስለዚህ ይህንን መልእክት ደግሞ በነ የኔታ ቲዩብ ስም እኔም እንደ ኢትዮጵያዊነቴ ይህንን ነገር ሼር ለማድረግ ነው የመጣሁት። ስለዚህ በተቻላችሁ መጠን የኢትዮጲያ ቤተሰቦች የሆናችሁ ወይም ደግሞ ቪዲዮውን የምትመለከቱ ገና ቤተሰብ ያልሆናችሁም ብትሆኑ ችግር የለውም። እኛን ቻናል ተቀላቀሉ አንልም፣ ግን የእነሱን ቻናል ሰፖርት እንድታደርጉ እናበረታታለን፣ እንደግፋለን። የበኩላችሁን አስተዋጽኦ እንድታበረክቱ ስንል በታላቅ አክብሮት እንጠይቃለን። ሌላው ነገር ቪዲዮዎቻችን ወይም ደግሞ በርካታ የኢትዮጵያ ቻናሎች ለበርካታ ሰዎች እንዲደርሱ ቪዲዮዎች ላይክ መደረግ ይኖርባቸዋል። የላይክ ምልክቱን በመጫን የዩቲዩብ አልጎሪዝምን ማነቃነቅ ይቻላል ወይም ደግሞ መቀስቀስ ይቻላል እና ከዛ አንፃር ሁሉም የበኩሉን አስተዋጽኦ እንዲያበረክት ስንል በታላቅና አክብሮት እንጠይቃለን ማለት ነው። ለጎፈንድሚው የኔታ ጎፈንድሚ የሚሆነውን ደግሞ በሊንኩ ዲስክሪፕሽን ላይ አስቀምጥላችኋለሁ። ያንን የጎፈንድሚ ሊንክ በመጫን ገብታችሁ $3 ትሁን $5 ትሁን $1 ትሁን ያላችሁን ሁሉ በማበርከት የዚህ የተባረከ የተቀደሰ የኢትዮጵያዊነት ግዴታችሁን የውዴታ ግዴታችሁን እንድትወጡ ስል በታላቅ አክብሮት እጋብዛለሁ። ለሁላችሁም ሰላምን፣ ጤናን፣ ብልጽግናን እመኛለሁ። ኢትዮጵያ ለዘላለም ትኑር እላለሁ። አመሰግናለሁ።
bent on covering things which are not on the ground here. The latest case in point is the hysteria, if you will, that CNN has recently caused, as if Addis Ababa had been under siege of the terrorist forces. There were more than 20 stories published in just 24 hours in Ethiopia with same fake information. Luckily, you were here in Ethiopia and has seen the facts on the ground. Now, tell me, what are some of your observations here?
Yeah, I was in Ethiopia from November 2nd through November 6th, and I arrived at Bole International Airport, and I opened my email once I had service again to an email from the US Embassy saying that all US citizens should immediately leave. And I wasn't about to get back on a plane and travel the 17 hours back. So I said, I'll stay a little bit and see what's going on for myself. And once you get to Addis Ababa, as your listeners know, there is not the conditions that are described by the CNN, the Washington Post, New York Times, and the U.S. government. The city obviously is in a moment of great, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of fear. Obviously, people are very anxious around what is taking place, but the city itself was not under siege. I was able to take a tour of the city. I was able to meet quite a few people, and I was able to freely walk around on my own within Addis Ababa. And if there was a war, or if the city was under attack, I do not think I would be walking around the city by myself, casually, taking in the sights, meeting people, getting great food. And so obviously what I saw actually being in the country, unlike so many of my colleagues in the news media here in the United States, is a completely different story.
Apart from pushing lies and falsehoods about Ethiopia, these Western media outlets are also trying to tarnish the image of the country, reporting exaggerated and horrific stories about the IDPs who fled their homes in various parts of the Amhara region, for example. Are there any observations that you made in this regard from your recent trip to Ethiopia, especially your visit to the state of Amhara?
Yeah. And, we often say that the U.S. media is one-sided. And in this conflict, they're not just one-sided. They're actively working to push a side on behalf of the TPLF. And they're only highlighting those who are in a certain part of the country, not the whole country. So when I arrived to Ethiopia, I wanted the opportunity and flew to Bahar Dar to understand what was happening to the people of Afar and to Amhara. And so I arrived at Bahar Dar to what was going to be a retail center for the city that has now been turned into a makeshift camp for people who have been displaced from throughout the northern parts of the Amhara state and across from Desi, Kombolcha, places like Lalibela, World Heritage sites that the TPLF has now invaded and destroyed people's homes that I heard stories about. People had been raped. I heard stories. People's livestock and their crops have all been destroyed. These are things that the Ethiopian government is not doing to the people of Tigray. They're not destroying crops. They're not purposely killing livestock. And I think what the American media has gotten so wrong is who's really suffering and why. It's not two sides are fighting, and because two sides are fighting, then there is damage. But the TPLF have been the aggressors. They are the ones who could end the war tomorrow if they demobilize, if they return to Tigray, if they put down their weapons. The war would instantly stop. The Ethiopian government has already declared a unilateral ceasefire. They said, we will stop fighting, and the TPLF continued. And so to actually travel to Amhara, to travel to Bahar Dar, and to hear people's stories directly, stories that are left out of American news, was quite enlightening. And I could not imagine it. And we were talking about how these people at these camps, the Ethiopians at these camps, they actually are more familiar and have read more American news than most Americans have, which tells you a lot about how little the American people read news here, unfortunately. But to be able to be in those camps and to read the news and watch yourself completely erase from history, erase from these stories, was something that I could not stand by. And I needed to go and hear it for myself and bring those stories back to an American public. And people have been thankful, because if not for me, if not for a few other journalists, those stories would never be told. The stories of tens of thousands of people being displaced violently by the TPLF right now. And that's what I found when I was in Bahar Dar.